I thought I'd be the last person you'd ever let him hurt. If it had been you that he'd beat to a bloody pulp, if he had taken you from this world, I would have done nothing but search the planet for this pathetic pile of evil death-worshipping garbage and send him off to hell.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I imagine some of you are wondering where my Batman the Detective review is. It's going to be out tomorrow. I was going to include this information about some of the Batman stuff and urban legends in the Joker series on the end of that review. But it turns out this stuff is a little bit more interesting to me, and it would have made that review end up being like 30 or 40 minutes. So I figured I will just cover the spoilers or the interesting things that I think happened in Urban Legends and Joker in this video, and then I'll get the review of Batman the Detective out tomorrow. So there are some retcons that happened to Jason Todd that I don't exactly agree with. There's also, you might have seen some headlines about this fabulous new Oracle costume that they got. So we'll talk about that as well. Then also there's a reveal in the Joker about Jim Gordon that I think was not very impactful because it's kind of, it feels like it's happened quite a few times. And there's some tropes that I think James Tynion is really, really leaning on. He's almost becoming Bendis-esque in leaning on some of his tropes. So we're going to talk about that too. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about this Jason Todd story that from Chip Zdarsky and Eddie Barrows that I've really enjoyed the first two issues. Chip Zdarsky was really effective in getting Jason Todd to a place where he would murder somebody in the first issue, actually making you feel very sympathetic for him and why he did it, and this relationship that he's developing with this little kid that he kind of sees himself in. So in this issue, I think Chip goes a little bit too far and does a retcon that I don't think is necessary at all. And I don't think it's additive to the story. And he just didn't need to do it to achieve what I believe he was trying to achieve. So what we learned, and we've known that Jason Todd, before he became under the stewardship of Bruce Wayne, had some issues. You know, his family, there was some violence in there. I believe his father was murdered. And we find out that his mother, I believe she's sick, and she's turning tricks to generate some income so that she can pay for this medicine that she needs. And she asks Jason, to go to the store and buy something while she takes care of business. So this drug dealer apparently is the customer, and he has an interaction with him, and he pulls a knife on like this 8-year-old Jason Todd. And it's not a very nice scene. And if this is what he wanted to show, it would have been effective in reminding people that Jason Todd has had a troubled upbringing. But this is not the end of it. Jason Todd, he sits outside the door, crying. You can kind of hear what's going on inside there. And then it's heavily insinuated when the drug dealer comes out, he kind of, verbally spars. He says some not nice things. And as he's walking away to go get some sleep, Jason Todd, as an 8-9-year-old, pushes him down the stairs. You can see his shoe there, and it's heavily insinuated that the man dies. Did we need to go back and retcon Jason Todd's origin story to include the fact that he was a murderer at the age of 8 years old? I think what Chip's trying to do is to show that he doesn't want this kid to be put in a position like he was, where his mother was having to maybe do these things and for him to have to kill somebody when he was 8 or 9 years old. But he didn't need to do that. You could already see that he'd seen the kid through his eyes. Maybe he didn't want him to grow up and have to be a vigilante or something, or feel motivated to do those things, even though he is the one that murdered his father. But Jim Starlin already told this story. Jason Todd was becoming unhinged as the Robin as the new Robin under Bruce Wayne. It's heavily insinuated in that story, before we get up into the death of Jason Todd, did he push the guy out of the window and murder him, or did he fall and he just didn't help him, right? So that's it's clear there's something going wrong with Jason Todd, and eventually they're going on the search for his mother, and he gets murdered by the Joker, almost beaten to death by a crowbar. and then the building's blown up, and Jason Todd and his mother are murdered. And then the reason Jason Todd is as unhinged as he is today, or when he came back, was because he was resurrected in a Lazarus pit. And that took the emotional kid and like really amped it up. And he came back, wanting to fight Bruce Wayne, saying, basically blaming him. You're the reason I was killed because you never go far enough. You wouldn't kill the Joker, and now I'm dead, kind of thing. And then you let him get away. Now, I thought that was all very effective, but this kind of takes away some of the bite of that. And this is an unnecessary retcon to paint the picture that Jason Todd was a murderer since the age of like 8 or 9 years old. I do not like it. I imagine there are some people that think this is a value additive to the character, or maybe fleshes the character out more, but I think it really doesn't. I think it makes the impact of what he was going through in the original story, when you see him go unhinged, like it takes away from that. He was already a murderer, so it didn't matter what Bruce Wayne was going to do, kind of thing. So that's the big retcon in this Batman urban legend story from Chip Zdarsky. I'm an enormous Chip Zdarsky fan. I'm still liking the story, and I'm still gonna continue with it. But I think this really takes away from the bite of something that was much bigger later on in the story, which I thought was much more impactful. It's when Batman essentially confronts Jason Todd. They find the dead body of the boy's father, and Batman and him, they start going toe to toe. They're fighting like right in front of this kid, and he jumps in front of him. It's like, leave him alone. He's a good guy. He's the Red Hood. He's a hero. And you can see the look on Bruce Wayne's face, very conflicted. And this is an impactful moment. Like, this is what you want to read a comic book like this for. This should have been what people were talking about. I think what people are going to be talking about is the stupid retcon about how Jason Todd was, a murderer since he was a very, very young child. So that is my thoughts on that. I still highly recommend this comic. It's really good. It's just that retcon, I think, is really, really bad. It's misguided. It does not add to what Chip Zdarsky is trying to accomplish, because it had already been accomplished. It doesn't reinforce it. It doesn't make you feel more about this relationship. I could still see why Jason Todd sees himself in this kid, and he doesn't want that to happen to him. He feels very protective of him. But now he was a murderer since he was 9 years old, and it just takes away from the character. Now, also within this issue, there's some backup stories. I believe Brandon Easton has a backup story, the guy that writes Excellence. I believe that one's Outsiders. There's Matthew Borzenberg. My bad. He writes a grifter story. It's probably the best comic story he's written in some time, probably since his Uncanny X-Men stuff. But then there's another backup story about Oracle from Cecil Castellucci. If you remember what Cecil Castellucci did during her Batgirl run, there's a lot of weird stuff that they're trying to undo now, which I'll get to here in a moment when I talk about some of the stuff that James Tynan's doing. But she's, I guess, trying to revamp the character, and we got a new costume. And you may have seen some headlines like this one, which I believe is from CBR. Batgirl no more. Barbara Gordon officially gets an Oracle costume, and it's perfect. Well, what could be so perfect to require a headline of this magnitude? It must be the most awesome costume in the history of the world. Cecil Castellucci must have knocked it out of the park. And you go in there and you see it's a tracksuit. A smart tracksuit. That's the new costume. I can't imagine anything more boring or blasé. It's even got a smart purse. This is why people don't trust like comic book websites when they see a headline like this, and then you go into the story and you see something this stupid. Now, was this created so people could cosplay Oracle on the cheap and really easy? Potentially. It's stupid. It's certainly not perfect. It's not fabulous. It's actually pretty lame. So that's the new costume. If you saw the headlines, and don't go read this story. This story is awful. This is like a 1.5 star comic. This Cecil Castellucci story within Batman Urban Legends. The main villain's name is Virus, and she hacks computers, and she kind of acts like a virus. Ooh, really original stuff. Really, really stupid. And they should never ever let Cecil Castellucci, or it might be Cecil Castellucci, write anything Batman related. Certainly not Batgirl related. They probably shouldn't let her write anything else ever in the DC universe. But at this point, I don't know. Maybe she's one of their creators that they trust. But that woman cannot write anything. She is a terrible comic book writer, especially superhero comics. Now let's get into the Joker from James Tynion. Now I'm enjoying this one. It's not really a Joker story, although I think we're about to get to that part. It's mostly been a Jim Gordon story. He's being courted by this mysterious duo, this younger lady and this like big, like fully covered like chauffeur guy. I know that there was some speculation out there that maybe that was Bane. He wasn't dead, that he's actually this chauffeur. I think that's all but confirmed not to be correct. But there's a big reveal in here that Jim Gordon has known that Barbara Gordon is Batgirl the whole time. Is this a revelation? Like, how many times are we going to learn that Jim Gordon knows the identity of the Bat family, and specifically his daughter? I know a lot of this has been in Elseworlds, but everything matters now. We're the Omniverse. Like this, there's no bite to a reveal like this anymore because you've done it over and over and over again. I mean, I must have read this 2 or 3 times in the last 2 years. It's like you can't. This doesn't mean anything anymore. It's lame. It's like constantly re-showing the origins of Batman in Crime Alley. It's like, give it a rest. God, like you can only read the same thing so many times before it's not interesting anymore. And then James Tynion is having to undo what Cecil Castellucci did in Batgirl, was it 50, where Jim Gordon, believes that it's Batgirl that killed his son, James Jr., her brother. And in here, she confronts him. She's like, you said that, you blamed Batgirl and you were going to get her for killing your son. Oh, and he's had this explained. Well, I was lashing out. Like, I was trying to hurt you. I was trying to hurt my daughter over the death of her brother. Does that sound like Jim Gordon to you? Like, why are you even having to unravel this mess? Like, you shouldn't even have tried, because now you're damaging the relationship of the two characters, and you're making Jim Gordon look like a complete asshole, like derelict father who's trying to hurt his children over the death of her brother, who she was trying to save. And he knew the whole time. Why would Jim Gordon try to hurt his daughter like that? It's really strange. It's really out of character. Jim Gordon has done a lot of things to protect his daughter. That falls in line with the character. He's done a lot of things that I think are stupid to protect his son, who he knew was a sociopath. He doesn't intentionally go out there and hurt his children. Certainly not blame the death of her brother on his daughter. That's like really strange. So I just stop doing this reveal. Let's just all assume that Jim Gordon knows who all the Bat family is. We've seen the reveal enough throughout DC Comics over the years that we can just assume that's the case. But it's not a good reveal, and it kind of takes away from the interesting stuff happening in Joker, which I do recommend, but not nearly as highly as Batman Urban Legends. And I'm only really recommending that Chip Zdarsky story. Just skip the rest of the stuff, although the Matthew Rosenberg stuff isn't bad. Because we've got Joker sitting, I believe he's in Belize. Is it like the secret fortress where villains stay, and sometimes they let them stay for free to get publicity when people are on the lam or something? There's some backstory to it. It was somewhat interesting. But the really interesting part is this big reveal that because Joker went into Arkham and killed all these important villains, like all the villain crime families are after him. So it's not just Jim Gordon going to Belize with the support of Batman and Oracle, and the financial support of this lady. He's got to beat the clock against Lady Bane and Lady Court of Owls. And this is interesting stuff, but can James Tynion stop it with the trope? He's just introducing new villain after new villain after new villain after new villain. And guess what? 75% of them are female villains. It the first few times is cool, but like this has been this level retread of your own tropes. It gets old fast, and he's making it old really fast. And it's not just in Batman, it's happening here in Joker too. Like, not every new powerful villain needs to be female. It's cool. There's no reason that they can't be female, but some of them can be male too. Like this. But every new powerful villain that, well, almost every new powerful villain that James Tynion introduces has got to be female for some reason. So we've got Lady Bane. She looks to be quite buffed up, and she's amped up on villain. She's amped up on Venom to represent the Bane crime family. And we've also got Lady Court of Owls, who's now apparently been the chosen one, and she's going to lead the charge down to Belize to try and take out Joker. So this part's pretty cool. Like, I like the implication of what's going on, but the trope is getting old, James. Let's do something new. How about you do something we don't expect? And just have fucking Talon go after him. It's an established villain that's heading up the Court of Owls. Why would they send this late? I don't know. I'm getting a little tired of James Tynion's trope. Like, we understand you want to introduce 80,000 new villains. How about we see if anybody likes them first? It sounds like people enjoy Punchline, although I wouldn't read the Punchline backup story if you want to like the character, just in my opinion. I know Nerdette's gonna bust my balls in the comments, but it's fine. I still think it sucks. But I don't know. Maybe we can see if one or two of these villains actually takes before you've introduced 40 more of them. But this, the implications of this are cool. Jim Gordon against the clock, racing against the Bane clan, the Court of Owls clan. There's another family in there that are sending their henchmen down to go kill Joker, and he's fortifying this this villain safe house in Belize for the incoming onslaught. At first, you think it's Jim Gordon that he's worried about. No, he's worried about these guys. So I don't know. It's feeling very repetitive with Tynion though. Although when I say repetitive, like I said, he repeats the whole Jim Gordon knew all along, and now it's let's introduce as many new villains as possible, make sure that they're all female. So those are my thoughts on some of the big reveals in Batman this week. Tomorrow I will review Batman the Detective from who was that? Tom Taylor and is it Andy Kubert? Andy Kubert? This is one of the Kuberts. The art's really good. Spoiler. The art's really good in Batman the Detective. But those are the big spoilers. We've got Red Hood was a murderer all along. He murdered someone when he was like 8 or 9 years old. Oracle has a fabulous new tracksuit. What else we got? Oh, Jim Gordon knew all along. We knew all along. How many times can you do that reveal? And of course, the successor to the Court of Owls and the Bay dynasties are all female characters, new female villains that James Tynion's introduced. Shocker.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.